Yitzi Chodesh Tov, new Chumash Vayikra. This week we talked about the Korban that we find at the end of the Parsha. Because Parashat Vayikra talks mainly about Korbanot, about different sacrifices that we have to bring. And most usually the sacrifices that we bring are on sins that a person commits between a person and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, between Ben Adam LaMakom, between a person and God. However, at the end of the Parasha, we find a very interesting sin that a person does between a man and a different person, between two people, Ben Adam לחבירו, and yet the person still has to bring a sacrifice when he wants to atone for that sin.
And we tried to understand why specifically that sin of all other sin. And when we look deeper, we notice that there is a mix here of Ben Adam LaMakom and Ben Adam לחבירו, u'ma'al ma'al ba'Hashem v'kichesh ba'amito, and they seem to go together in this story, and understanding that shines a whole different light on what's going on here, and also teaches us an important lesson for life.
Exactly, an incredible important lesson for life from this concept of Meilah, of embezzlement, of embezzling from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God himself. What is it all about, and what super important message does it teach us, for us today, in today's day and age, for what we do in our day-to-day life? Hope you enjoy it. Take a look. New Chumash Vayikra, Torah Kohanim, and being Torah Kohanim, this is the Chumash that we learn mostly about all the different Korbanot and the work in the Mikdash and the Mishkan. And in the beginning of the Parsha, we find the more general Korbanot, Korban Olah, Chatat, Shlamim, the different types of Korbanot generally that people have to bring on a sin that they do, Ben Adam LaMakom, between them and Hashem. However, at the end of the Parasha, we find a very specific Korban, a Korban Asham, that comes when a person sins Ben Adam LeChaviro, between a man and his friend and a different person. And when seeing that Korban over there, you really have to ask, first of all, why does a person have to bring a Korban when two people sin against each other, when two people hurt each other? Why is a Korban even relevant for that situation, for that case? We know many cases when people hit each other, when people hurt each other, then you have fines, then you have payments, then you have different kind of punishments. However, we don't see a Korban in those kind of situations like we saw in Parashat Mishpatim. So really, why does a person have to bring a Korban in this kind of situation? But even more than that, why this situation? Why in a situation where a person holds something from somebody else, whether it was something that he found, whether it was something that he stole, whether it was something that somebody else deposited by him, and he doesn't want to give it back, he doesn't give it back, and then he admits that he actually had it, why in that case does a person also have to bring a Korban besides giving back what he was holding on untruthfully? There's so many other cases, again, when we see people hurting each other, that you might think that you should bring a Korban. So why over here? What is this Korban Hasham that we call Hasham Gezilot at the end of the parasha? What is it all about?
Yeah, usually you wouldn't expect a Korban for something Ben Adam LeChavero, but actually if you look carefully, what's happening here is not just Ben Adam LeChavero, because the person not only stole or is hiding something that someone gave him and not returning it, he also swears in God's name that, it's not by him, and only then admits that it is there. So there is a certain aspect here of Ben Adam LeMakom, and we actually see this in the opening pasuk where it also talks about Hashem, u'ma'ala ma'al ba'Hashem, and v'kichesh ba'amito. There are these two sides, but I think there's something much deeper going on here. Because first of all, what does me'ilah mean? If you take something that's holy, that's supposed to be for the Mikdash, and you use it for personal use, that's me'ilah. What does that have to do with anything? We're talking about someone who stole something from someone else. Nothing here was holy. So what are we talking about? U'ma'ala ma'al ba'Hashem. And also, if we understand this as two things, someone stole from his friend and he swore in God's name. So it should be v'kichesh ba'amito, u'ma'ala ma'al ba'Hashem. Why is ma'ala ma'al ba'Hashem coming before kichesh ba'amito? But I think what's actually happening here is something else entirely, and that's why this Avera is so unique, and that's why here we have a Korban and not anywhere else. Because what is this person doing? Why is this person swearing? We don't know any halacha that if someone comes up to you and says, oh, you stole something from me, oh no, I right away have to go swear. We know the opposite. We know only in a case if someone says and it partially admits to some of what is being claimed against him, then he has to swear, which is known as a modeh b'miktzat. So why here is the person suddenly swearing? Who asked him to swear? It's his decision. What happened here is very simple, and we know people do this all the time. Someone did something wrong. Someone stole something. Someone had the chutzpah of taking something that someone gave him and holding on to it. And this person has the chutzpah of looking at the person who just gave him something and saying, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But he is more chutzpah than that. What this person does is he brings God into the story. He uses God. He uses God's name to help him steal. He not only steals from someone, he says, oh, I'm ready to swear in God's name for that. And he goes and swears in God's name and sort of turns God into part of this crime. Right now, not only is he's stealing with God's help, with God's name. By swearing to God's name, this person has to walk away and just leave because, he swore in God's name. What can I do? So he is forcing God to be part of this crime. Or in other words, he's using something holy, godliness, God's name for his personal needs, for his personal use. That's why it's me'ilah. Just like someone who steals something that belongs to the mikdash and uses it for himself, takes something that's supposed to be holy and uses it for himself, he's taking godliness itself, and that's the words uma'ala ma'al ba Hashem. It's not only a me'ilah in a korban, it's not only a me'ilah in something holy, it's me'ilah in godliness itself. He's taking God and using him to achieve his goals. And that's what's so unique about this story. There are people who don't get along. There's a lot of things between people, and the Torah sees that is extremely important. And we know that tshuva is great, and you have to do tshuva on everything. And we know that Torah cares a lot about the maasim between Adam and Chavero. And as you said, Parshat Mishpatim is filled with it. But there's also solutions. If this happens, then he has to return it, and he has to do that, or he even has to pay more than what he stole. All that's there. But here's something else. Not only are you doing a crime, you're trying to pull God into your crime. You're using godliness for that. So yes, this is a ben adam lechavero, but because it's a ben adam lechavero where you're sort of pulling God into this with you, that's why it's not enough here to just have a regular case of ben adam lechavero solved in court with you paying back or doing whatever needs to be done. Here you also have to bring a korban. Here you have to bring an asham, because what you're doing here is not only something bad against the person, and you know what? Not only something bad against God, who told you not to do that bad thing to people. It's using God as part of your bad deed. And we know this too often, where people sometimes use spirituality, use holiness, use holy things or God's name to try to do evil things or bad things to other people. They want to achieve something. They're selfish. They have their selfish needs. They're trying to do something, and they want power. They want control. They want money, and whatever it is, and they give it some sort of beautiful spiritual covering, and it's all just false. That is a lot more than doing something bad to someone else. That's trying to use God as a tool to do bad to something else. That's already a whole other level, which needs this special korban. Even though we're talking about someone who admits his sin, to really cleanse yourself from this, there's a whole process. Also fixing what you did, also admitting what you did, but also bringing the korban asham.
Very good, very good. Exactly. I think there are a few levels really over here, as you were pointing out. First of all, it's bringing a Kadosh Baruch Hu into the mixture. First of all, why are you bringing a Kadosh Baruch Hu into these problems that you made, that you created in the world? Why are you trying to drag Hashem's name into it? But on top of that, how does that even happen? And I think maybe it's rooted in understanding what this me'ilah is about. And as we've said many, many times in our videos, you have to pay attention to the Hebrew language, because it's such a beautiful language, because there's such a deep meaning behind all the words in the Hebrew language. And when you look at this word me'ilah, in English, me'ilah is embezzlement, but the shoresh, the root of the word in Hebrew, is the letters me'al, mem ayin lamed, which basically means on top. A person sees himself on top of God, and therefore he allows himself to embezzle, like you said, from the mikdash, to take the things that are supposed to go towards God. He allows himself to use towards himself. You really can't get more narcissistic than this, more self-focused, more self-centered than this, thinking to yourself that you are above God and everything around you should turn to you, because in the end of the day, you are the one to decide. And you know, one of the things that might happen now that the person has to bring a korban, and suddenly this avera, this sin became ben adam lamakom, between a person and a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that person might say to themselves, okay, I'm good. Once I brought this sacrifice, once I brought this korban, I don't have to apologize. I don't have to go to the person that I hurt and apologize for it, since I brought the korban. Now Kadosh Baruch Hu likes me again. Now God likes me again. However, the Torah emphasizes several times that the person, on the day that he brings the sacrifice, he has to make sure that he has already returned the object that he has stolen, that the object that he has kept by himself. And this concept of Shivat HaGzela, this concept, this actual mitzvah, a mitzvah to say, an act of mitzvah that you have to do, that you have to carry out, returning that object in order to atone to that sin that you did, because it comes together. It comes together so much so that this concept of having a mitzvah that you're not allowed to do, and then a mitzvah that you have to do, a deed that you have to do, an active deed that you have to carry out, that's called a lav hanitak la'aseh, a mitzvah that is forbidden, that is connected to an active deed that you do have to make, and them together, the mitzvah to say, atones so much for the lav, for the forbidden thing that you did, that usually for a forbidden avera, avera, for a forbidden sin that you do, a person might get malkot, might get a punishment. However, in this case, the mitzvah, the active deed of returning the object actually cancels the punishment that the person would have gotten. This is this concept of lava nitak la'aseh that we find in the Gemara. This is what is going on over here, because even though the person has to bring a korban and atone towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the sin he did, still even more so, he has to bring back the object that he stole. And again, so much so that even the Mishnah emphasizes the person has to go till the other side of the world, till Madai, to bring back this object, because you shouldn't think to yourself that once you bring the korban, everything is good. And then also there's a machloket in the Gemara, does the person even have to tell the other person that he stole from, that he took from, that he has returned this? Rabbi Akiva holds, yes, it's not enough just to bring it back into his house and leave it there. You actually have to let that person know. You have to go and apologize to that person that you took the object from. And maybe this is because you put HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the story. Returning the object to that person, to the other side of the world, make sure that he knows. And also the Rambam adds in both mezid keshogeg, also a person that does this on purpose, that lies on purpose, and also a person that didn't know and did it by mistake. Both of them have to return the object. This returning of the object and apologizing for it towards that other person is so crucial, is so important for the atonement. Maybe because you brought HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the story, maybe because you use Hashem's name to cover up for that sin that you did. And you know, we have this in so many other situations, or in many other names, when people try to use Hashem's name, try to use the Torah in order to cover up for the bad things that they're doing. As we say in Mishnah and Avot, karadom lachfor, you're taking the Torah and you're digging with it the hole that you're digging for yourself, and you're using the Torah to continue digging that hole. We find people using the Torah to justify the bad deeds that they are doing, and this act of justifying the bad things you're doing is connected directly to the concept of me'ilah, to the concept of thinking that you are above God, that everything in the end of the day centers around you, not around the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, this goes all the way back to understanding our place in this world. Are we here just as a deposit, as a pikadon? We got something that we have to hold onto and only make better, chas v'chalila, not make worse? Or are we the landlords of this land? Does the person in this world, is he in this world because he was put in here for a mission? And the reality around you is a reality that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets for the world? Or is this world all centered around me, and the reality around me is what I see and what I believe in and what I think to myself, and what we call the nature, the olam, the world? And again, in Hebrew, olam milshon ne'elam, from the shoresh of disappearing, from the word of hidden, because in this world HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the nature in order to hide, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden, and it's up to you to find him. It's up to you to see him and tell yourself, is this world run by nature, by coincidences, by casual happenings that happen in the world, or is this world run by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Is HaKadosh Baruch Hu on top of this world and we are beneath him, and in the end of the day we have to fulfill the Torah and try to fulfill HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will? Or do we see ourselves as the center? And in that case, this is not a deposit where we got. It's not something that we are holding on to and trying to prove. Rather, it's ours. And as we've said in the past, one of the things that shows ownership is the ability to destroy something. You can only destroy something that you own. So do you think to yourself that since it's mine, I have the right to go out and destroy it? I have the right to go out and call other people to destroy it? Or do I say to myself, there are greater powers here. Kadosh Baruch Hu is on top of everything. Kadosh Baruch Hu controls this world. And it's up to me to try to do my best in order to fulfill the mission and to live the life that I have to live according to what Kadosh Baruch Hu is expecting from me. And chas v'chalila, not on top of him, but below him, understanding that everything around me, whether it's a mitzvah, it's something I find, whether it's a pikidon, it's a deposit, sometimes chas v'chalila, it's something that I take to myself, which I'm not supposed to take like a gazela. But in the end of the day, I have to return it to where it belongs. I have to return it to its own destiny, to what it has to be. And especially if I put a Kadosh Baruch Hu's name into it, I have that responsibility not to turn it into something that I dig the hole deeper with, but rather create a better and more stable and a stronger world around me that enhances Hashem's name and brings Dusha into the world and brings Kiddush Hashem into the world.
It's interesting what you're saying here about getting a deposit and being responsible for it, because the Zohar here on our psukim about Omatza Aveda V'Kicheshba. If someone finds an Aveda V'Kicheshba and lies and says that he doesn't own it, he doesn't know what it is, and Ishbal Sheker, and then lies, he says, you know what we're also talking about? We're talking about your neshama, says the Zohar. You got this neshama, you find that neshama within you, and then, oh no, it's mine, I can do with it whatever I want. Neshama, as we say, is chelek eloka mimal. It's godliness put into you. When you use your neshama neshama, when you use yourself and your being in a negative way, every time what you're actually doing is taking godliness and using it for yourself and bringing it down, because godliness is within you, is within your neshama. So therefore, this concept of someone taking godliness and bringing it down with him is not only when we actually do it the way it's done here with Nishba Sheker, where you're actually using God's name, but it's actually at some level, every time we're not achieving our goal, we're not reaching where we need to be, we got this huge present within us and we don't use it for what it needs to be, and we don't reach our mission in this world. In some way, not only are we not doing what we're supposed to do, but we're bringing godliness down with us. We're bringing that present from God. We're mekachesh. We're stealing not only from a friend, we're stealing from God himself. We're stealing God himself and bringing him down. And that's the greatest chilul Hashem. And as you said, when we don't do that, when we do reach our mission, that's the greatest kiddush Hashem.
Exactly. And of course, we start every single day with Elohai Neshama Shenatat, to be a reminder that this neshama that we have is a gift, is a deposit that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. And again, this job, this mission that we have every single day to carry out, to do good for the world, to do good for the world, but also for Am Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, and to develop Am Yisrael and the world and Eretz Yisrael to go towards the right path, and Chaz v'Chalila not try to destroy it or not try to harm it in any way. But we're out of time, so we'll have to end here. We'll just remind the viewers what we discussed the past couple of years. Last year, we discussed the whole concept of Asher Nasi Echata, when a king sins. And the Torah uses a very interesting phrase, because it uses the expression saying that when the president will sin, when the king will sin. And we asked, what? Does that mean that all politicians, all leaders are corrupt? Does that mean they always sin? What is the Torah trying to tell us? And we saw that the Torah teaches us a very deep, important lesson about sins in general. What are sins all about? What are the Korbanot all about? We'll link this video. We also 2 years ago talked about the concept of salt. We find in this week's parasha that a salt is a covenant between us and Hashem. We know Shabbos is a covenant. We know Tefillin is a covenant. But salt is a covenant too. Why is salt so important? What is this mitzvah of Brit Melach also about? We'll link that video too. And of course, as usual, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to share it around. Like the video on YouTube. Comment below on YouTube. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please consider subscribing and help us grow the channel. And Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom, and Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov, Shabbat Shalom, and Mitzvah Hashem. We'll talk again next week. Shabbat Shalom.